One of the most shocking and out of nowhere news in the realm of gaming this last week was the retirement of none other than Phil Spencer, as well as Sarah Bond, who left with Phil, both who essentially spearheaded Xbox's endeavors. And Phil Spencer in particular was replaced by Asha Sharma, who's currently the president of Microsoft's Core AI product. IGN first reported on this on February 20th, 2026. And there have been some developments since. Asha Sharma engaged in an interview with news outlet Variety, through which she talked about how people are concerned that her background is AI and how that might potentially negatively impact Xbox's future, to which she said that she has no tolerance for bad AI. AI has long been part of gaming and will continue to be, noting that gaming needs new growth engines, but that great stories are created by humans. Now, worth noting is that she did not say she has no tolerance for AI, but bad AI. And, what she defines as bad AI and what higher-ups like Satya Nadella define as bad AI, that's the question, isn't it? In Satya Nadella's view, implementing Copilot in every aspect of Windows, despite users of Windows criticizing that element, is good AI. So, that's very subjective and doesn't bring me a ton of confidence. Now, Sharma does admit that she has a lot to learn, that she knows she's new in the gaming landscape, and that she has a commitment to being grounded in what the community is telling us. Coming into gaming as a platform builder, resolute in her goal to earn the right to be trusted by players and developers. I suppose only time will tell. And all the while, retiring executives like Phil Spencer as well as Sarah Bond each gave their own statement on the matter. Phil Spencer on Twitter and Sarah Bond on LinkedIn. Now, we need to talk about Sarah Bond specifically because there's this new report from news outlet The Verge, this article titled Inside Microsoft's Big Xbox Leadership Shakeup, that provides some insight into these recent executive departures, especially where Sarah Bond is concerned. Apparently, a lot of folks within Microsoft and Xbox were not happy with the way Sarah Bond handled her responsibilities. The thing is, Phil Spencer's retirement felt like an eventual inevitability, but people thought that the person who would succeed Phil Spencer would be none other than Sarah Bond, who's been, in many ways, the face of Xbox alongside Phil Spencer and almost felt like she was Phil Spencer's right-hand person. But The Verge puts it pretty bluntly, despite Bond seeming like Spencer's natural successor, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Microsoft CFO Amy Hood clearly didn't agree. No, they did not. Now, if you ask me, at least in part, Microsoft's promotion of Asha Sharma as head of Xbox had to do with her experience in the AI space, which Satya Nadella is kind of obsessed with at the moment. But at the same time, the reason Sarah Bond was apparently passed on when it comes to succeeding Phil Spencer was because of some of her decision-makings and her involvement in aspects of Xbox's campaign that ultimately didn't go down well both internally and externally. According to The Verge, while Bond being overlooked as head of Xbox might have surprised many Xbox fans, for the more than a dozen current and former Microsoft employees I've been speaking to, it's felt inevitable in recent months. Now, when it comes to Phil Spencer, The Verge insists that he made the decision to resign from Microsoft last year after a tough few years for Xbox. Now, some are refuting claims that Phil Spencer's retirement was voluntary or that it was planned, with Greg Miller here from Kinda Funny Games coming out and saying this.
I've been past something that, again, reiterates to me, I'm not going to read it, but reiterates of oh, no, this was not planned. No.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, man, people are still debating in the.
That's
saying,
crazy.
Chad, if you trust us, what I'm seeing, I'm saying this was not planned.
So Greg Miller doesn't go into specifics, but it would seem as though there was a lot of spontaneity in the recent decision-making when it comes to this leadership shakeup. But internally within Microsoft, it was seemingly known for months that Phil Spencer would eventually depart. And of course, there were months-long talks about who the successor might be. Now, apparently the announcement of this leadership shakeup was supposed to happen today, Monday, February 23rd, 2026. And the reason it happened last Friday was because the story got leaked to IGN, and IGN was planning on running the story. So that forced Microsoft's hand to make that announcement earlier so that they could control the narrative. Referring to this article right here where people first heard that Phil Spencer is retiring, that Sarah Bond is out, Matt Booty has been promoted, and that Microsoft AI executive Asha Sharma has been named the new Xbox boss. And so apparently employees of Xbox all first heard about this news through that IGN article before some kind of internal memo could be sent out. Now, eventually memos did go out to Xbox teams, but But something that The Verge highlights is the way that Sarah Bond is not really mentioned in the memos of Satya Nadella, Microsoft's CEO, as well as Microsoft Gaming EVP Matt Booty and new Microsoft Gaming CEO Asha Sharma. The only individual amidst this transition who mentions Sarah Bond's name in their memo is Phil Spencer. And you can see that for yourself right here in this official Microsoft blog that announced officially that Asha Sharma has been named EVP and CEO of Microsoft Gaming. And in this blog post, you'll find messages from Satya Nadella, from Phil Spencer, from Asha Sharma, as well as from Matt Booty. And you can see if I Control F Bond only comes up once under Phil Spencer's message, who thanks Sarah Bond for her contributions and whatnot. But everyone else has kept her name out of their memos and messages, while Xbox fans are surprised that Sarah Bond will not be succeeding Phil Spencer. According to The Verge, some Xbox employees I've been speaking with saw the writing on the wall for Bond last year. Now, Sarah Bond hasn't been with Xbox for super long, becoming Xbox president on October of 2023, but the time that she's been with Xbox, she's been at the forefront quite a bit. And a big contribution of Sarah Bond's to Xbox was that she was, according to The Verge, crucial in getting the deal over the line with regulators and slowly started to become the face of Xbox. Referring to the Activision Blizzard purchase for $69 billion, apparently she was really crucial in ensuring that regulators got on board for this deal to fully go through. So for some time, she was favored within Xbox, but then came the departure of Xbox Chief Marketing Officer Jarrett West on June of 2024, at which point Xbox's marketing team directly answered to Sarah Bond. And as part of Xbox's overall initiative to bring Xbox games to as many devices as possible through Xbox Cloud Gaming, and more recently through straight up just the release of first-party Xbox games on competing platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo Switch, it was Sarah Bond who came up with the infamous marketing campaign, This is an Xbox. The goal of the campaign was basically to present a scenario where just about any computing device can serve as an Xbox technically, due to the fact that you can access Xbox games through a variety of means, whether it's directly through the console, whether it's through Game Pass, whether it's through cloud gaming, so on and so forth. No matter what device you play on, Xbox is on some level available, is what the intent of the messaging was. But what this ultimately ended up doing was kind of diluting the power of the Xbox brand. The message was basically, you don't need an Xbox anymore because everything is an Xbox. And so that made people go, okay, so if everything is an Xbox, then what exactly is Xbox? It was just kind of like this really confusing marketing campaign. And apparently it's one that The Verge is told offended many Xbox employees internally. A lot of folks within Xbox did not like this marketing campaign direction that Sarah Bond came up with for Microsoft and Xbox's intent to get their Xbox games to as many platforms and as many devices as possible. And then there's the mishandling of an Xbox mobile gaming store that was supposed to launch in July of 2024. It's 2026 now, and that endeavor still hasn't come to fruition. That store does not exist, despite the fact that it was a major component of the This is an Xbox campaign that basically says even on your mobile devices, you can play full-fledged Xbox titles. So that put a damper on things. And the end result, according to The Verge, is that the pivot away from console, led by Sarah Bond under Spencer's direction, so Phil Spencer did still have a role to play, hasn't gone well for Xbox. Microsoft's Xbox hardware revenue has declined for 3 financial years in a row, and it looks like those declining revenues are going to continue throughout fiscal 2026. I think recently it was reported that Xbox achieved some of the worst hardware sales numbers in Xbox's entire history. And so maligned was the decision-making surrounding Xbox's direction and the marketing surrounding it, especially that This is an Xbox campaign. Most of the current and former Xbox employees I've spoken to in recent days, according to The Verge, are relieved that Bond is leaving Microsoft. Apparently, a lot of people within Microsoft and Xbox did not believe in her direction and did not particularly like working with her. According to The Verge's sources, Bond has been tough to work with and built a team structure that meant if you didn't follow the vision or questioned it, you were out. The one thing that sources did praise her for was her ability to strike partnerships with companies and developers, But in terms of working with her on Xbox's direction moving forward, that was an area where there was a lot of disagreements. The Verge also reports how Sarah Bond tried to manufacture and carefully manage this image, both internally and externally, where she wanted to appear to be a gamer like Phil Spencer when in reality she wasn't. I feel like so much of Microsoft and Xbox's efforts do go into the image of the executives who serve as the face of a platform and brand like Xbox. And that's in large part why I'm so still skeptical of Asha Sharma, not only because she has a background in AI, not a whole lot of background in gaming, but her commitments to great games and the return of Xbox and future of play. You know, actions will speak louder than words. It's just impossible to trust Xbox's words from executives at this stage because they've spouted so many things that have ultimately never ended up panning out. She says right here that we will not chase short-term efficiency or flood our ecosystem with soulless AI slop, addressing the fact that she has a background in AI. But again, given how many times actions have not aligned with past words, it's hard to believe her until I actually see it with my own eyes. And now hearing that Sarah Bond was kind of manufacturing this image of appearing to be a gamer when she really wasn't, just adds further credence to the notion that you shouldn't believe everything you see or everything you read or everything they say when it comes to Xbox executives. Now, it doesn't necessarily take one being a gamer to be a good business person and to run a gaming company, but I think a lot of people will agree that it does help if the individual has a gaming background or a game development background to be able to empathize with audiences and make decisions based on the knowledge that the gaming experience brings to the table. And that's just something that a lot of executives don't have because at the end of the day, they're in it to make money. But yeah, internally, apparently Sarah Bond and her strategies and her direction and her leadership was not well liked, with The Verge reporting that Bond's strategy had been failing internally and been questioned multiple times. Bond had tried to push mobile and cloud over console to reach potentially millions more Xbox customers, but the result has been a classic case of chasing tomorrow's customers by neglecting today's. I think chasing tomorrow's customers by neglecting today is kind of the best way to summarize the current state of Xbox and how it ended up where it is today. Xbox, I think from a brand standpoint, is just in a really bad place. Microsoft and Xbox have set up a scenario where there's just very little reason to own an Xbox. I mean, there's every reason to buy Xbox games if they're good, but given that they're playable on competing platforms, you know, just Xbox as a gaming brand, as like the place to go for gaming and all these things, the value of Xbox has never been worse. And with Game Pass having increased its price significantly since its launch, the point where its value is becoming less appealing, and with the next-gen console apparently being an Xbox PC console hybrid, and with Xbox still committing to releasing all of their first-party games on PlayStation and Nintendo, it's just like a weird position for Xbox to be in right now. Or it just feels like they've gone full Sega, where they're basically focused on releasing their games to as many platforms as possible and selling software, and just kind of starting to trickle out of the Xbox hardware space. Though one of the commitments that Asha Sharma did make was, quote, the return of Xbox, recommitting to our core Xbox fans and players. And not to mention that when somebody reached out on social media to Asha Sharma requesting that they bring back exclusives for Xbox like Halo, Forza, Gears, Fable to keep those exclusive, Asha did respond saying, I hear you, but I don't know. She's been responding a lot on social media, and I feel like they've been stock responses that don't necessarily indicate that she will go in that direction. It's just more of like, I'm hearing your feedback, but what decisions are made behind the scenes, you know, I don't think will necessarily reflect the fact that she responded to somebody by saying, I hear you, when talking about the desire for exclusivity. But beyond the poor marketing campaign surrounding Xbox, there's also been a lot of turmoil in the way Xbox has shut down so many beloved studios. They tried to shut down the studio behind the development of Hi-Fi Rush, one of the most beloved games in the year that it came out. The fact that despite all that, they were willing to shut that studio down only for them to be rescued by Krafton, thankfully, just was an incredibly baffling decision, combined with shutdown of Perfect Dark and its development studio, among many other failures when it comes to their acquisitions of studios. And things like Call of Duty have not performed well despite that being a big part of the Activision Blizzard acquisition for, almost $70 billion. It's just been really poor optics and really poor performance across the entire Xbox platform. And many people internally feel like Sarah Bond greatly contributed to that. But I do feel like Phil Spencer also shares a lot of the responsibility. He's still the leader of Xbox and he's above Sarah Bond. But apparently when it comes to that infamous "This is an Xbox" campaign, which proved to be disastrous, Sarah Bond pretty much spearheaded that because the marketing team answered to her instead of them having like a marketing person, because that marketing person quit Xbox before Sarah Bond took over that department or like started to more directly be involved in the marketing department, and it just didn't work out. So folks within Microsoft and Xbox seemingly are glad that Sarah Bond is out, or relieved that Sarah Bond is out. So then the question becomes, what's the perception like surrounding Asha Sharma's assignment as head of Xbox? Well, one thing The Verge highlights is that Asha Sharma is trying to reverse Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond's endeavors with her commitment to the return of Xbox, in what The Verge cites as a clear message to employees that the strategy over the past few years has not been working and that they plan to shift under this new leadership. With Asha Sharma specifically saying that "I want to return to the renegade spirit that built Xbox in the first place." But again, words are one thing, action is another. But generally, much like with gaming enthusiasts following this news, Xbox employees have been concerned about the fact that Sharma had a previous role with AI, an executive in the AI department at Microsoft. There's also concern about her lack of industry experience in entertainment and gaming. That is a sentiment that is echoed by both developers and gaming fans alike. And despite Asha Sharma saying that she has no tolerance for bad AI or slop AI, there's still concerns that she's been appointed by Satya Nadella as some kind of executioner of the Xbox console. Now, from what sources tell The Verge, apparently Microsoft does really want to turn things around for Xbox, with a company worried about losing Xbox as it's one of its only remaining successful consumer brands. But whether Satya Nadella's oversight and Asha Sharma's leadership will have the foresight to take Xbox in the right direction instead of what they believe to be the right direction based on their preconceived notions, especially surrounding AI, that is where I'm concerned, and that's what remains to be seen. Now, there are some who have praised Sharma, apparently describing her as enthusiastic, willing to learn, and very capable of getting teams to execute on a clear vision rather than coming in as a product executioner. She also has a history at Instacart and Meta for overseeing platform launches and getting people to use products, the type of user acquisition that Xbox has failed at in recent years. So despite her lack of acumen in the realm of gaming, maybe she has good business sense and ultimately will be able to steer the ship in the right direction and take guidance from those more experienced than her in the realm of gaming. So hopefully that collaboration will lead to good results. And at the end of the day, look, I have serious doubts about Asha Sharma, but the proof will be years down the line when she shows us through her actions what kind of leadership she will bring to Xbox and whether that's ultimately a good thing or not. I do want to give her the benefit of the doubt, but right now there's more doubt than benefit. But she has big shoes to fill and a lot to prove, especially given her background and her lack of experience in this realm. I do hope that she ends up like freaking crushing it, but I won't hold my breath for it until I start seeing some good signs. As for this whole situation with Sarah Bond, I do feel like she's being scapegoated to a degree. I don't get the sense that all this is fully her fault. Even prior to Sarah Bond's leadership position at Xbox, folks like Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella, they have expressed in the past that they want games to become a lot more accessible and to kind of break those boundaries when it comes to exclusivity and whatnot, and just ensure that players can play Xbox games on as many devices as possible. That's been like a common thing Xbox has insisted on. So I think Phil Spencer and Satya Nadella are just as much to blame when it comes to Xbox's current predicaments. But at the same time, no doubt, Sarah Bond had a lot of responsibilities as the person who also helped oversee Xbox and who managed the "This is an Xbox" campaign. Whether all of this is a good thing or not, it's hard to say. I mean, it's just too early to say. But I do think that Xbox needed some kind of leadership shakeup. But whether Asha Sharma is the right kind of leader for Xbox, that's where there are big question marks surrounding this. But I don't know. I think Xbox has a mountain to climb in the coming months and years. And I'm not confident that Asha Sharma is the right person for the job, but I certainly do hope that she proves me completely wrong. But that, folks, is the latest on this whole situation surrounding Xbox's leadership shakeup, Phil Spencer's retirement, Sarah Bond not being chosen to lead Xbox and likely resigning as a result of that, and all of the opinions that people have had within Xbox surrounding the departures of the likes of Phil Spencer and especially Sarah Bond, as well as the appointment of Asha Sharma. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on all of this, and do you think Asha Sharma will have what it takes to lead Xbox into a good direction, or do you have the same doubts and skepticisms that a lot of people do? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.